Being very entitled and controlling, narcissists have no difficulty stepping all over your personal boundaries. So that's why I put together an extensive video class called This Is Me. It has 25 videos, written documents, guided questions. I'm going to teach you how to have healthy boundaries. There's a link below, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. Many of you have had some long-term exposure to a narcissistic person or sometimes an entire narcissistic system, and you've made the decision, I need to get away from this. I need to go and find whatever is left of my sanity and get back on the right path. And there are times when it's all fair and good. Sometimes you can succeed in physically removing yourself and never seeing that person again. Other times you're going to see that person because of extraneous circumstances, but you want to psychologically unhook. Either way, there's going to be some recovery. And just because you've made the decision to get away from that strongly narcissistic person doesn't mean that all of your emotional well-being is going to come back in full form right away. It's a process as you go into that recovery, and I want to talk with you about what goes into that recovery process with the understanding that as you do, you're going to need to apply patience, and then you're going to probably need to put a little bit more patience into the mix, and then we need to add a little bit extra patience. Have I made my point? As you move forward, it's not necessarily an easy process. It can be a grind, and then you can find yourself, years down the road sometimes getting pulled back in with memories or who knows what. So let's talk about what's required of you first as you go into that recovery process. And then I want to see if we can look at some of the complications that will specifically imply you're going to need to have that patience I'm talking about. Now, first, when we talk about going into recovery, one of the first things you want to do is just give yourself permission to grieve and give yourself permission to feel confused or hurt or perplexed. You're going to be thinking, what did I get myself mixed up in? I didn't see this coming, or I knew that this person had problems, but I had no idea it was going to be this bad. And it's okay just to allow yourself to just kind of feel perplexed for a little bit. And no, that's going to be a part of the process. Allow that to happen. And then beyond that, a huge part of your recovery, and this is what we do in the therapy office, is to sift out what went wrong. Inevitably, you had major clashes of opinions or priorities or procedures with that person or that system. You found yourself being pulled into non-productive arguments. How did that happen? You learned perhaps that you were living or engaging with somebody who was a keeper of secrets, and then sometimes you wind up feeling like I've got to keep my own secrets too because I don't want them to know the full me. That's not going to work out well, and we need to sift all of that out. You'll need to dig into the roots, another portion of the recovery. Dig into the roots of the relationship. What have I learned about that narcissistic person? What was going on behind the scenes with that individual? Why are they the way they are? Or what system did they come out of? And it's going to be essential for you to understand that there's a lot of internal strain and chaos that person brings, because they're going to want you to believe if there's a problem between you and me, it's all your fault. No, you need to develop a certain kind of objectivity. And then in addition, you'll need to take that same kind of thinking and turn it on yourself. You might need to ask, what kind of unflattering truths have I learned about myself? What were my vulnerabilities and how did I get to that place? Those emotional responses that I had that weren't all that strong. Why was I unable to stay on track the way that I know that I need to? Why was I in such a reactive mode? What does that tell me about me? And that's part of you successfully recovering. In addition, I mentioned the emotions. You'll need to examine your emotions kind of in a one-by-one kind of way. That anger, what's the purpose of my anger and how did it go off base? Or my shame, my fear, that person put a lot of it on me. Why was I so vulnerable to that? Or the loneliness that I had and the ways that I managed myself relative to that emotion. And then part of the recovery is going to be you just going back to your basics. who am I? How do I recapture my identity and live into it in a clean way? How do I recoup my internal sense of security and well-being and worth? What does that mean? What adjustments of thought will I have? What adjustments in behaviors does that imply? So there are a lot of different things that are part of your recovery. Now, having said all that, it's not like you can go into this mindset that says, well, I am now going to recover and it's all going to be just fine. Complications will show up. First, let's keep in mind that you're breaking away from a narcissistic person. Let's think. Is it highly probable that the narcissist is going to think, well, I accept the fact that that's where you are, so go right ahead, do your thing. No, the narcissist is going to continue to be a narcissist. They can continue to insult you. You'll hear about it from other individuals. They may say it directly to your face. In fact, the insults may actually increase and be even worse. They might taunt you. Oh, you think you're all that. And they might remind you of all the many mistakes that you make. They can run a smear campaign about you behind your back. What are you going to do with respect to that? In addition, another major complication that can come along, and this is big and it's ugly, and that is the narcissist will take it upon himself or herself to turn other people against you. It's like, well, I'm going to get ahead of this game. And so they go to people who are very important to you and speak poorly about you. And then they say, now you're going to hear this, but it's not true because here's what the real truth is. And you're going to have that you're going to have to contend with. On top of that, another complication is when people get word that you're breaking away, whether it's in a business or a family system or a marriage or even with your own adult children, which is sad to say. When you wind up breaking away and people get wind of that, it's like they're going to judge you. It's like, I knew something was wrong with you. You have this breakup, you have this difficulty, and you have these strains. I've heard stories about you. And so they can think, well, I just don't want to get tangled up. Now, much of what they know is based on piecemeal information, but they can pull back or they can just be the kind of person that says, I don't like to get involved in those kind of things. In other words, they're a fair-weathered friend. And then you can, another part of the complication is just you can have your own internal war going on within yourself. Your life's foundation now has cracks. Where am I going to live, or where am I going to work, or who am I going to hang out with, or I've got broken away from this system, where am I going to get support elsewhere? And you're going to need to set up some external circumstances, and that doesn't always run smoothly. You can feel a combination of both relief, but then also embarrassment, or then you can have just kind of a fuzzy view about where the future's going. I don't know what's next. Sometimes that can occur. So, all of that said, there are elements that can go into the patient's, into the recovery. There are complications. And then this is where a guy like me says, do you understand why it's so essential for you to allow yourself the patience to go through this? It's simply not easy for you to just immediately claim your feeling of normalcy when you've been so exposed to abnormalcy. It just doesn't happen overnight. Another thing that you're going to need to do as you try to maintain and find patience is remind yourself you've probably indulged in what I refer to as mythical thinking. Looking back, you can probably think, well, I just wish that person could have been this way, or why couldn't they understand this, or if only we could have done this and not done that. That's what I call mythical thinking, hoping for outcomes that just simply aren't going to be there. And it's going to require you to reorient your mind to what I call ugly truth. It takes patience and tolerance within yourself to get to that place. Also, sometimes you're just going to find as you break away and you're starting a different chapter in your life, sometimes you just need to get away from the noise. You may need to get away from certain systems or certain people and just pull back with your activities and choose your confidants very carefully. Sometimes you need to take some time away from a lot of people in general and invest in yourself and your interests. And then in addition, sometimes you're going to need to, part of the patience requires you to allow yourself time just to reflect about who you are. And this might involve reading, or now on the internet we have our teaching classes and videos, or you might need to go to therapy just to kind of pull back and recalibrate. And then in addition, part of you developing patience means that you're going to want to prioritize your own independent thinking over codependent reactions. And I hope you hear that, because that's a big one. So many times when you're in with a narcissistic person, you get so caught up in the control, react, control, counter control, all of that, that you have not really developed the thought that says, wait a minute, stop the bus. I need to just think, what does it mean for me to be independent? I don't need to continue to play off of other individuals. So I need to focus on the key traits that I want to have on the inside of me, with or without the other person's approval or coordination. And I need to rehearse in advance how the different form of me is going to come along. And again, that's not something that just happens magically overnight. Also, part of your patience means that you'll not over-apologize for being in the lousy circumstances that you're in. I mentioned a few minutes ago, people want to judge sometimes. And it may be that you did some things wrong. If so, you need to act like a forgiving person, or they may think of you as being an unreasonable person, and yet well, I'm going to go ahead and cling to my reasonableness. They just don't know some of the things that I know. And so you're going to need patience relative to that. Part of your patience means I don't really feel like I need to defend unnecessarily. I mean, yes, sometimes I can give explanations, but I'm not going to go overboard in that category. And then also, part of your patience with yourself is make some room for your own personal backsliding. The old, I make 3 steps forward and go 2 steps backwards. Perfection or elimination of all pain is not a reasonable goal. And so allow yourself permission to kind of wax and wane with respect to that. Now, let's keep in mind that narcissists are imprisoned by their own false persona. In your patience, what you're going to do is you're going to say, well, I'm going to be tied to my own sense of truth. And I'm going to go into that space, and that means you're going to be different. You can do the what was I thinking kind of thing all along, but the better question is, where am I going, and what is that going to look like? It's important for you to determine, I accept me for who I am, lumps, bumps, bruises, and all. And then I'm hoping you can realize, as you develop a patience with yourself, that becomes an essential ingredient in you finding peace. Now, I hope that videos such as this can give you some good awareness of what you might be dealing with. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do, and we're going to keep more videos coming towards you. Sometimes when you're dealing with something like this, it can be so essential for you to go through therapy. I mentioned that. It's so good to have somebody to sit down and say, hey, I want to know you, and I want to understand what you've been through. And I'm hoping that if that's the case, that you'll avail yourself to psychotherapy. I've been sponsored for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. There's a link below that will take you to a whole team of licensed professional therapists. And if the need is there, please go through the link, answer the questions, and then you get to select a therapist that can help you sift this out. I mean, I can't underscore, sometimes that can be so crucial. Now, in addition, I have put together online courses, classes that you can access anytime you want once you've purchased them. And each class has at least 25 teaching videos with documents, handouts that go along with it, with guided questions. It's very much an exercise of a therapeutic nature. We have anger games about how not to get pulled into their anger traps that they want you to be in. This is me about boundaries, free to be, finding yourself despite their control, ready, set, connect, having healthy goals and objectives. In addition, on my website, we have my webinars, which are 90-minute presentations, along with access to my podcast, lots of articles, my books, etc. Recovery is not just an overnight, one and done kind of a thing. It's an ongoing process. It can be a grind, but it can be something that can be so beneficial and bring you such relief once you know that you're on the path. And I'm hoping you can see yourself as being a lifelong learner. The recovery doesn't have to have a finishing point. You just continue on until the day you die. I'm in process. Now, I hope that this is something that you can digest well. And like I say, as you have this patience, it does allow you to be a person of peace. Let's make that your goal. I hope that you can actually be a person of peace.